arrays, array lists, and linked lists. I'm Samaya from Period 1. So what is an array? An array is the most simple way to collect and organize data, but as a result, it is the least flexible in terms of usages and methods. Unlike array lists and linked lists, arrays can only hold primitive data, so you can't use objects. Arrays also have an immutable length and can only carry data of the same type. Last but not least, each object in an array is called an element referenced by an index. So how do we declare an array? There are two different methods as shown below. By doing the second method, you declare size and leave room to later add elements into the array. The default values of the array equal 0 or null, depending on data type. And below are the examples for both ways of declaring an array. So here are some important things to know about arrays. The first element of an array has an index of 0. You can access the length of your array with array name.length. In addition, arrays can be used in for loops as shown in the example. As you can see, it's important to put length minus 1 in for loops in order to prevent an array index out of bounds error. In addition, arrays do not have to be imported, so they're very convenient. Last but not least, 2D arrays can be implemented to work with matrices. Here's an example using an array. On the first line, we declare the array to have a size of 9 elements. On the next line, we create a for loop that loops through the length of the array. On line 3, we set each element equal to the index of that element plus 1. Line 4 is just a closing bracket for the for loop. In the diagram, you have a visual showing the index of the element versus its value, and the way I wrote my code, the value is the real position of the element. So while my first element has an index of 0, it's still the first element. So moving on to array lists. An array list is essentially an array with a changeable length. It refers to elements in the same way arrays do, using indices. However, array lists must be imported using import java.util.arraylist, and they only hold classes. So this is how you declare an array list. It's pretty similar to how you declare an array. Now is the fun part of array lists, since they have much more methods than arrays. There's a remove method, which lets you remove an element at certain indices. The get method, which allows you to access an element at a given index. The set method replaces the value at a certain index, and the add method allows you to add to the array list at a certain index. Last but not least, the size method, the most important method, returns the length of the array list, and we use this a lot in for loops. An example of me using array lists to make the same exact collection I made with my array, showing how they can be used for the same things. But there's one difference. After the first loop, I set the element at index 2 to a different integer using my set method, showing how the method can be used to change array list contents. So as you can see at index 2, I changed the object from integer 3 to integer 4. So instead of getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I get 1, 2, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, what is a linked list? A linked list is like array lists, but instead refers to each element as nodes. And the head points you to the first node, and like the array list, size is not immutable. Linked lists must be imported using import.java.util.linkedList. And unlike arrays, linked lists can only take objects. Every node contains the reference to the next node, with the last referencing null. So this is how you declare a linked list. As you can tell, it's very similar to the declaration of an array list since they're both lists. And here are the methods for a linked list. It's important to remember that a linked list can also use array list methods. So the remove method removes the object at a specified index. The add first method adds a new node to the beginning of the linked list, while the add last method adds to the end of the linked list. The get method returns the element at the specified index, and the isEmpty method checks if linked lists are empty or not. If it's empty, it returns true, and if it's not empty, it returns false. See line 1, I declare my linked list, and on line 2, I use the add method to add an element. In line 3, I use add last to add an element to the end of the linked list, and in line 4, I use add first to add an element to the beginning of the linked list. Then I use another add method to insert an element into index 2. Note that there are two add methods, but they're different because they're overloaded methods and thus have different parameters. On the last line, I can print the entire linked list just by printing its name, which is super convenient. And yeah, that's my lesson on array lists, arrays and linked lists. If you have any more questions, I recommend asking Miss Chu because I'm not very good at this. Thank you for watching.